Hello, Damian. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me on.
You obviously from the video for the people that are listening to the audio, they cannot see this, but we can see that you're fit. You're a big guy. You worked in special forces, and you were just telling me before we started that this helps you. So your interrogation techniques from the time you're working as a police officer um, kind of helps you guide the interview. Uh, I would assume they do actually have the opposite effect, maybe scaring people. Tell me how how is that helping you?
It really does. Yeah, and I am stunned all the time that a former operator and cop and I get to interview the top people in the world. One of the reasons and why I think that she is when I interview high end people, and particularly in the special forces or in the scientific community, I'm not sort of starstruck. So we speak on the same level, which is really nice, and it gets a nice rapport already. But with the policing
Right.
skills, when we get a statement from someone, if I'm asking you, what happened, the first thing you do, I was taught at the police academy, I say police academy in air quotes, like the movie, we were taught it's a free flowing story. You just say to me what happened, and I just don't write anything down. I let you tell the whole story, and then we go back and we pick it apart a little bit. And so we're letting someone tell their story, and somehow, I don't know how it happened, it's worked out to be really successful for getting someone's story across, sharing someone's journey, and delving into the questions that a listener wants to hear.
This is really interesting because I recently had an experience with the police. It was the first time. Someone broke into my car. They broke the glass and so on. So I went there to do a report, and I had to wait for 1 hour and a half because someone else was doing their report, and it was a more complex case. And I
Yeah.
was wondering, like, why does this police officer let this person just talk about the most random stuff? They were
Yeah.
saying, and then my mom told me that I should not do this, I should not punch this guy. And I was like, that's just crazy. Like, why doesn't he go, straight to the point? So now I know it just matter. Well, it's the great technique. So, just if people want to become better speakers, interviewers, joining the force can be a good way to to learn that. Tell me about your podcast. So if someone meets you in an elevator and they'll be like, "Hey, Damien, what do you do? What's your podcast about? What did you say?"
Yeah, I love that. It's the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Mind and Muscle and Straight Talk. I titled it that. I interview the best people in the world at what they do, and I never say that lightly. I'll interview top psychologists, top scientists, Olympic coaches, All Blacks rugby coaches, through to special forces veterans, anything from mind and muscle and everything in between, which really opens it up. I've had 6 world record holders on and a 7th coming on Monday. And it's just brilliant being able to talk to those people and be able to share their story. So that's the elevator pitch. The best people in the world at what they do. It's
Wow,
something for most people, and a lot of people don't get access to hearing from those people as well.
totally, totally. That's I'm already very curious to kind of figure out what. Well, I'll ask you this already. Have you figured out any pattern on how these people are so successful at their jobs? Especially the Olympic medalists. Is there something they'd be like, yeah, all of them, they do this or they do that? Is there a pattern for that?
I never thought about a pattern between them. So focus, humility. Humility would be a common theme amongst everybody. I interview a SEAL Team CIS guy, a Delta Force guy, an Olympic coach, and humility and openness to learn, rather than being greedy, being self-centered, because that doesn't work. So the ability to be humble and also to be open to learning and learn from everybody. I would suggest those are things that are common between all the guests, and they love sharing their
Mm,
story, so that others can learn as well.
good one. So always be adapting. Also with my own, entrepreneurial journey, I think the same. That is not about being right at first. It's about being humble and knowing that we have to learn a lot, and we need to be always learning, be always adapting. So it's good to hear that they have
It's
the same or similar view.
It's true, and same for me.
Go ahead.
I came from nothing. I came from just starting a very small podcast, and I interviewed somebody who's one of my I was going to say childhood because I'm old. I'm 50 years old. But when I was in my 30s in the military and special forces, a very highly regarded author, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, he wrote very famous books. I got to interview him. But before I interviewed him, I had to go and listen to somebody else who'd interviewed him because it was current. I had to listen to 2 hours of this interview. Mm-hmm. Ironically, the person who did that interview I'm interviewing on Monday, the world record holder. But I had to be humble enough to eat 2 hours of my time to just learn what's the current state of affairs with this guest and what's the best I can get out of it. And that homework made the interview really, really successful.
Is this your normal process with interviewing? How do you do your research before interviewing such a high performing person?
Sometimes they're famous, so it's not so tough. I'll do a little bit of research. I want to get their bio, and then I want to get an angle on things. I don't go in with set questions, but I'll get an angle. So with Andy on Monday, it's just a nice organic example. He's a SEAL Team 6 guy. He's a world record holder. He's got all these things going on. And most people talk to him about, shooting people or getting shot, talking about skydiving, which is a world record, and all these other things. I just want to go, what drives this guy? I haven't really sort of asked that question to people before. Mm-hmm. So that's my angle is going to be, what drives you? So that's going to encompass, from when he was a kid to now. And then I'll focus on a couple of specific things that I want to ask about. So I get a couple of angles and a couple of subjects, then I organically ask those questions.
And what drives them? That's also my question, because what drives someone to put themselves in harm's way in such dangerous situations, either being, shooting or jumping out of a plane to be the fastest, man falling into the earth?
Yeah.
Have you discovered what kind of drives this type of people?
It's funny because, I compare a special forces operator and say an Olympic athlete or World Cup athlete and maybe a top scientist, and it's the unrelenting pursuit of excellence. They're just trying to be better. And many of them are just trying to push themselves, not actually competing against someone else. They're just trying to push to be their best. And that just so happens that makes them the best. So it's just that inner drive, but I'd like to get it from I like to get the guest's words. So I'm really excited to ask that question, what drives this guy?
It must be a very interesting podcast. Tell me about, do you have any interesting story, something that you have learned? What was the most, and you probably have a lot, but what was the most, eye-opening or eye-boggling, crazy story someone ever told you in your podcast? Does something come to mind?
I've had so many stories. Gosh, look. I'll tell you one jump straight out. Thank you. I interviewed a very nice man, Tyler Schwartz, former soldier, and now he's a strength and conditioning coach. And the angle was how he became a Instagram, influencer, sensation. But when we talked about his transition from military to civilian and the mental side of things, we focus a lot with mental health. He actually told me that he had a gun to his head and the bullet didn't go off. It went click. So he was going to commit, I won't say the word in case it gets slammed here, but he had a pistol to his head, and either the firing pin didn't hit properly or the primer didn't go off, and it went click. Now, it was one of the most powerful shows and powerful times in a show, and it's been great on the trailers. But that just blew my mind, and I was so respectful. I hope it came off as respectful. At least I tried to be respectful, asking around that and making sure he's okay to talk about it. And it's beautiful because he, Tiago, he wanted to share that story for others, and he talks about that. And his mother actually messaged me on Instagram saying thank you so much for interviewing him and sharing his story. So that was actually really beautiful. So that was most powerful, and also a really positive side of that as well.
How did that make you feel that his mother sent you a message How
That
did
was
you felt
amazing,
after
actually.
being able to share such a story?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was beautiful validation of the work that I'm doing. I don't make money off it here. We just share the
Mm,
stories for everybody, and
mm.
it was beautiful. It was really nice to receive, and it obviously showed that I'd done the. It made me feel validated, but it showed that I did it in the right way.
And how does one do that in the right way? Like when someone tells you such a dramatic personal story, how do you? Because for me, there's two things that come to my mind. One, which is I guess a more egoistic, which is okay, this is great content. And the second is okay, I want to be respectful because this person is sharing something really personal with me, right? With my audience. And I want to be respectful, right? So how do you manage that? How do you make sure that okay, this is great content and you take it as a good content and as well you're respectful and yeah, how do you manage that?
Yeah, great question. I'm taking notes. It's about the conversation. I'm really invested in this conversation. You and I are having right now. When I have a guest on the show, so often they become friends. Probably 3 shows out of the 150 or so I've done, we haven't become friends. There was no rapport there, and just didn't click, and it wasn't a good show. But how I'm respectful, it's actually real. It's people tell me that was a real conversation. You're telling me something, or the guest telling me something, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking about what you're saying. I'm not thinking about my response. I'm thinking about what you're saying, making mental or written notes on that, and then asking a relevant question to that. And also, what also I found super hard because you're thinking 3 things at once. Listening to what you're saying, writing notes
Right.
down, but also I have to think about the listener. What's the list? Has the listener translated that? Do they need a
Mm.
translation of that? And do they need to unpack that more? I can't just gloss over it. I'll give you one more example. I interviewed literally a Jason Bourne. Eric Miaris was a Jason Bourne. That
Mhm.
was his job. Single special missions unit and single operator. And he said, "Oh," and
What
he
is
was
it,
talking about
Jason Bourne?
Jason Bourne the movie. So he was, a single operator.
Ah,
This guy was like
got it.
that.
Hmm.
He was talking about when he's in doing a job, and he's talked about getting shot, and he glossed over that. And we're about 3 sentences down. I said, hang on, Eric. You mean the first time you got shot? Everyone's going to want to listen to that. Everyone's going to want to find out more, and so we had to delve into that. So you've got to be thinking about what the listener wants to hear, not just what I want to hear. And back to your original question, I never think of, oh, that's great content. I just love sharing good stories. So I
Mm.
think this respect shows through because it's genuine.
Yeah. You forget about the mic, you forget about the camera, you just think, okay, I'm having a conversation. And
Exactly.
enjoy it, right?
Look,
Okay.
I think
Tell
you're
me
correct.
about
I did. I can't. I just want to touch on one other one. You're making me remember them, which is amazing.
Mhm.
I interviewed a guy, Nick
Yes.
Dunn. He was kept in a Indian prison for 6 years, wrongly imprisoned, like falsely imprisoned, along with 6 other British subjects. So it was a stitch up. This was an hour interview. It went for 2 hours. He cried his eyes out through the last hour. I had to keep going because this guy was literally crying and getting his story out and processing on the screen. And so my family's around and they're like, when are you going to finish? I'm like, this is important. And we had a great connection. It was amazing. Seeing a grown man, a huge guy, he's a professional guy, and he was wrongly imprisoned
Yeah.
for 5 years in Chennai prison. So you have to let the people get their words out.
Whoa. Yeah, do you remember what was the episode? The number of the episode or the name
If you
of that
Google
episode so
Nick
that people
Dunn,
can check it out?
Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, it'll
Mm.
come up on all the platforms, and it was brilliant. It was so
Mm.
powerful. Beautiful man.
How do you record these interviews? Do you have like uh, what kind of microphone? What is your setup?
Thank you. It's really basic. I've got the lapel mic. I prefer a wired mic. because I've had so many guests have connection issues with their Bluetooth pieces. So I just do a wired mic, and I use the MacBook camera, which is so-so, and I record it on the Zoom platform because it does side by side, and that's for me who doesn't have a lot of time on the hands. It's pretty simple. It's an easy platform. So Zoom. Camera, and you don't see it here, but I've normally got a virtual background, so I can plug that in anywhere as well.
Yeah, that's the advantage of Zoom, that you can use those, virtual backgrounds. I've been noticing that, and we were chatting about this, that Zencaster doesn't allow that, and that's a bit annoying. And once you record it, how do you use Podsqueeze in the flow to take the best out of it?
Look, Podsqueeze has been amazing. It's been a game changer. I pay you, you don't pay me. So it's not a promotion, but it really has saved me a lot. Sometimes I have 2 pages of show notes, and the show I published yesterday was from 2.5 months ago. I can't go back and listen to that show. I don't have a lot of time. Sometimes the notes don't make sense, but to be able to upload, so my flow is, I take the raw video, I change it to MP3, upload it to Podsqueeze. Podsqueeze spits me out the show notes and potential titles. Those are 2 things I use. I then tweak it. I punch in some of my key notes, or maybe I got a title from a quote, and then I tune that with the tune feature, and bang, that's my show notes. And there's 2 things that sets me apart with the other podcasts out there. One is the show notes. They're actually genuine. They're actually for the person. I send them to the guest to approve. And the other one's the video trailers I have. From there, from the MP3, getting the show notes and the title. Then I put it together with iMovie. I narrate the Podsqueeze show notes that you've given me. I narrate those. I punch them into iMovie with some with the thumbnail, the actual interview, and I've also got a sponsor end and back. Spits out on iMovie. iMovie goes to MP4. MP4 goes to YouTube, and then I convert the MP4 to MP3 for the platforms. Upload it, and I upload it on Libsyn. I've been using Libsyn since I started 7 years ago.
Okay, so you read, as an introduction, you read the show notes.
I do.
In your own episodes.
I do. I think it's something. I'm genuine. I'm passionate about the people, and I hope it comes through. I like to tell the story, and I like to pay that person respect.
And tell me your experience with YouTube, because it's a platform that not a lot of podcasters invest on, even though more and more it's becoming apparent that people should. Should they? Is that a good platform to grow? And why should people upload to YouTube?
Great question. There's 3 there. They should. One is, the answer is yes, because it's uploading the same time my MP3 is, so why not? 2, why? It's a search engine. YouTube is a search engine, so that's more access to you. Like I said, Google Nick Dunn Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. It'll come up on audio, but also come up on YouTube. And then 3, another reason why is communication. Communication, it's not correct. And I actually interviewed a guy on this. 93% of communication is non-verbal. No, that's not correct. There's actually other numbers. However, you actually get to see someone's face. When you're reading a book, you're making up the story in your own head. Here, you're actually seeing the people interact. Communication is not just with that the voice, but with everything else there. And I think it's powerful. So you got the choice. I sometimes I put on YouTube and just listen to it. Sometimes I prefer to watch them as well. So I think as a podcaster, you're simply missing out if you're not using that platform. Why not?
Yeah, I like the communication approach, and as well the search engine approach. It's similar to SEO, but for videos, right? Do you do any optimization with the keywords you try to see? Is there any trick on how to get the most out of the search engine that YouTube is?
Podsqueeze saved my time and saved the quality of my shows, and now I have to. It's so far beyond my skill set, that tech stuff. I'd have to hire someone for the optimization. But hey, I don't use it, but I wish I had access to it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's also there's a lot of potential. There's also something that we want to explore a bit more with YouTube. Yeah, we are getting towards the end of this show. I would love to ask you um, two questions. First one is, what advice would you give to another podcaster that is starting out, or to your, younger self that the first time you started your podcast? Do you have something in mind that you'd be like, yeah, you need to know this. This is something that you need to know before you start.
Yes, quality. My setup now is a side-by-side screen. I've got a beautiful virtual background. I've got good audio and all those things. Start off with quality. I didn't go high-end with microphones and other cameras. I just get quality because if my earlier shows on video aren't as good as my current shows, the audio was the same. That's probably one. And don't ever be afraid to ask.
Video quality?
I'm sorry?
Video quality is important.
Video quality and also your background professionalism. I was asked to be a guest on a show of someone's yesterday, and I looked at one of her shows. I just went, no thanks, I don't want to be involved with that. It's got to be quality. If you want quality guests, they have to see you as professional, even if you're not making money from it.
Okay, yeah, interesting. And sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
My second one was don't be afraid to ask a high-end guest. I reached out to the All Blacks coach last week, Steve Hansen, one of the most successful coaches in the world, and he texted me back the next day. It was such a beautiful thing to get. Never be afraid. Might get no's, but you might get some yeses, and just try.
Yeah. Is there any tip on how to reach out? Any kind of message, how the message should be?
You actually said it, Tiago, just then. I reached out to Tony Blauer. He's one of the top self-defense experts in the world. His views are huge when he's on a show. He said, Damian, I think he said in the show, you reached out to me in such a nice message, such a genuine, polite message, that why not? It's an interaction. And it was just being real and communicating to them. And the other one is leverage your guests. I leveraged a guest last week to get me the interview for Monday with Andy Stumpf, the world record holder. And next thing I know, I'm getting a text message from him. Not even just an email, just a text message. So it was awesome. And leverage those guests because they do like to tell their stories. We're here to help others, and that's what I like to do.
So you use them as a networking technique. You ask them, hey, can you connect me with X and X or some person? Is that it?
100%. Absolutely. And the same, if ever I can connect someone with someone as well, I'll do that. I've connected guests with guests because they're genres. But I reach out to people. And like I said, we often become friends and it makes it even easier. It's a real relationship. Mm-hmm. You're talking to someone for an hour. So definitely leverage and definitely make the point of asking.
Yeah, and it's something that I've had here said in the podcast as well, that this is a networking, that the hosts of a podcast, they are, the center of this network, and they get to meet a lot of people, and you get to grow your network, which is really interesting. Last question for you, Damian. How did podcasting, and this is a philosophical one, get ready, how did podcasting change your life?
Well, this has never been asked before, and I've been on a few shows with my background. It probably stopped me. It's probably got me here in front of you. It's probably stopped me from not being here. Again, I won't use that word. Military guys from special forces, we have a lot of trouble transitioning from that identity into this one. And you heard about one before. There's three things that go wrong with someone mental health wise. If you lose purpose, identity, and social connection, and that's not quoting those words. You can use those terms. If you're losing this connection, we've got major issues because the world's just gone down to you, and why should you even be here? So I would suggest that in the last couple of years, podcasting has saved my life through the social connection. Some of these guests I message every day. They message me, we communicate, and I get messages back that hearing a show saved someone else's life. So to be able to have a network of friends, actual people that care about me and I care about them around the world that I had never met beforehand is amazing. So from a personal side of things, it has changed my life. and I'm very thankful for it. Quite stunned, actually, now I look back on it and speaking to you.
Oh, that's incredible. And I think it's this connection, and it's a great perspective, which is, okay, you have something in common, something that maybe you don't have it in common with your loved ones or the people around you. And starting a podcast is a great way to connect to this hobby or to people that, went through the same as you. Right. And for you, your job, it's so specific. It's impossible for me to understand it because I've never done anything like that. So the stress and the pressure you must feel, right? It's not easy to get people to recognize that and feel the same. So then because of podcasting, you get to connect with them and talk with them. And that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
Exactly right.
Damian, I'm very curious to listen to your podcast now. Tell us again the name of the podcast, the social medias. How can people find you so that they can, stop this one and go listen to yours?
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to speak with you. The Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, Google that. It comes up on all the platforms. If you want to interact with me personally, go to Google How Not to Die Guy. How Not to Die Guy, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere. How Not to Die Guy will come up. That's another side of business that I run, and you're welcome to interact with me personally. And if you got anything I can help with, please reach out, because I'm always happy to answer. And if someone's in trouble and they're asking for help, I'll never turn that away, or I'll be able to connect you with someone that can help where you are. So yeah, Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast and How Not to Die Guy on Google.
Amazing. I will also link everything in the show notes. Damian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for your time. It's beautiful.
This podcast is brought to you by Podsqueeze, an essential tool for podcasters that creates show notes, timestamps, clips, and more. Visit podsqueeze.com and use the code PODCASTER for 20% discount in the first 3 months. We release a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday. See you in the next episode of Lessons from a Podcaster.